And I remember we were talking about this, Rob, in the offseason. We were previewing the MLB season. We said that was the one division where you could make a case for any of the 5 teams, right? You could make a case for the Cubs, the Pirates, Reds, whoever it may be. And I'm just looking at those teams, Rob. And again, the Brewers are the heavy favorite, minus 400. They're likely going to win the division. But don't you feel like somebody's going on a run? I think a lot of people are going to think it's going to be Pittsburgh. And honestly, Pittsburgh reminds me a lot of Cincinnati's team from last year. They have the rookie that everybody's talking about, right? Paul Skeens is must watch, just like Ellie was when he got called up last year. But like, it might be the Reds again. This was the team that everybody loved coming into the season. And maybe this is just what they do. They get off to slow starts, and then the July hits, August hits, they start to get on a roll. Certainly sweeping the Yankees would be a great start. Do you see anybody making a run at the Brewers in the second half? And if you do you think the Reds could be that team?
So before the season started, what I said about the Central is it is not going to be the best division. It is going to be the most competitive division for exactly that reason. There are 5 teams in this division, and I was able to make an argument for any one of them to ultimately end up winning that division. I'm a little disappointed in Chicago because it feels like it's meltdown mode right now. They're 2-8 in the last 10. You got the rumors flying around that Bellinger's going to be on the block, and he is going to get paid handsomely to go be a one-year guy somewhere for sure. I do think it's probably meltdown time for the Cubbies at this point. But, I kind of feel about the Reds the way I have felt the last couple of years about Seattle. Let's see what they look like in the second half. Let's see what we look like when they calm down a little bit, right? Like Seattle's done that multiple years in a row. I've described them as being allergic to the first half of the season. It's the exact same thing Cincinnati did last year, right? Yep, you had to wait for the call up for De La Cruz, who has been a revelation for this team. And I will tell you right now, probably my favorite non-Atlanta Brave in Major League Baseball right now. But it took them a little while before they went on that little run of being America's sweetheart there for a hot minute. And then on the exact opposite foot is the St. Louis Cardinals. Tons of experience, a lot of guys that have been here for a long time, Goldie, Nolan Arenado, etc. This is an experienced team. Look, they're 6-4 in the last 10. They're 3 games over 500. Yeah, they're 7 back of Milwaukee. But Milwaukee seems to always lose a war of attrition the deeper we get and the more towards the playoffs we get. So, and then you're exactly right about the Pirates. I mean, Paul Skeens is an automatic, probably 7 to 10 more wins by the end of the year just by being on the bump. Like, I was absolutely blown away that the Braves beat him, but it was at Truist the other day. He's better than that. Dude, I think the answer is, and I'm sorry to say it to Chicago fans, I think the Cubs are cooked. I think they're sellers at the deadline. I think they're one of a very few teams. And honestly, and I'd like to have this discussion later, PJ, for a lot of the teams that think they're still in a race for that third wild card spot, it's probably worth it to be a seller even if you don't want to, because you're going to get a lot in return this year because there's not that many sellers. The market is going to be very much shifted towards the few teams that do. I think the Cubs, even if they are only 13 games back, and we have seen 10, 11, 12 game leads dissipate over the second half of the season, I think you sell anyway. I think you restock the farm. I think you get set for next year. But the Reds and Pirates could very much both be second half stars. The Cardinals are going to be a consistent 6-4 any given last 10 team. And I'm just waiting for an injury or two to derail the Brewers. This is going to be a 4-horse race, I think, down to probably the last week of the season, to be honest, PJ Glasser.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob. And the reason that I'm making the case for the Reds, and right now they're 22-1 at BetMGM to win the NL Central, is for a lot of what you just said. I think the Cubs are going to be out of it. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. It looks like they're going to win today. They're still 13 games back of Milwaukee. I think they're going to sell. Pittsburgh and the Nationals, Rob Brown, I hope are the two teams that might be in contention mathematically, but I hope that they continue to build towards the future and don't fall into the trap of that third wild card spot, right? Do what the Orioles did a couple of years ago. You're surprising people with your young players and you're playing better than you thought. Continue the rebuild because it's only going to continue to pay off in the long run in the next couple of years. So that's why I'm not buying Pittsburgh. And then the Cardinals, it's kind of been impressive what St. Louis has done, especially when they lost Contreras. I think a lot of us left him for dead. Goldschmidt and Arenado have not had Goldie and Nolan type years. Their pitching's been pretty decent, though, and their offense has done enough. They've had some guys step up for them, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. The reason I like Cincinnati, Rob, is because, yes, they remind me a lot of Seattle and kind of a team that gets off to a slow start in the first half, revs it up in the second half. But also in that division, Cincinnati is the only team along with Milwaukee that has a positive run differential. So I think we're going to start seeing the Reds kind of win some games, right? They maybe had some bad breaks here in the first half. But the Cardinals and the Pirates are both minus 37 run differential. The Cubs are minus 34. Cincinnati's plus 17. And here they are getting ready to beat the Yankees again and add to that run differential. So I do think Milwaukee's going to win the division. If you were to look at maybe a team, though, to challenge them, and maybe you want a little sprinkle at a long price, possibly be that team for me at 22-1. So we'll see what happens in that division. Brewers got a healthy lead in that NL Central. If there was a team that you could think maybe challenge them in the second half of the season, would it be the Reds? Would it be the Pirates with that pitching? Give us a team maybe in the NL Central if people want to throw a flyer on to maybe chase down the Brewers.
I boarded the ship preseason. I'm going to go down with the ship. I had the NL Central Reds locking it up. I had them going to the World Series, winning the World Series. It was a bold prediction, but I was a little surprised that they've been stuttering this early on. I thought they were going to be at least 500 or maybe a couple games over at this point in the first half. But look at the Milwaukee Brewers. It is a surprise, and they're 10 games up, and I don't really understand it, to tell you the truth. But, kudos to them. But this is a long season, and we've seen it, especially from Cincinnati last year, who started out really hot and then faded in the second half and ultimately, was a disappointment. But the same thing could happen for Milwaukee. We have a team in Cincinnati that has a lot of young talent. They get Noel Marte back. Eleanor Roosevelt De La Cruz is doing what he's doing. He's on pace for 80 steals. Jonathan India's ripping, Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo. They got the number 2 pick coming in the draft in a couple weeks. So there's a lot of potential on this Red team. I think they just have to put it all together. They go up to the Bronx, 3-game little sweeperoo, break out the brooms against them Yanks. I think we're heading in a positive direction for the All-Star break.